Computer.
Is that
All
one?
right. Hello, Lena.
Hi, how's it going, Michael?
Going really well. How are you?
Uh, Pretty good. Feeling a little overwhelmed with everything, but making it work.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, one thing that I know is really energizing for me is when I'm able to learn a new skill and implement it well. And so I want to start by telling you how excited I was to see your use of breakout groups in yesterday's lesson.
Yes, I actually was really excited too because I feel like we've used breakout groups so much in all of our PDs, and I've been feeling a little hesitant about it with the kids, but I felt I was pretty excited, and I think they liked it too. Um,
Yeah, and I think it really like advanced the goal that we talked about last time in terms of making sure that students are doing the thinking and students are doing the working,
yeah,
as opposed to you. So you created a much stronger ratio, so that kids could do more of the talking and the thinking amongst themselves.
yeah. I think that yeah. Well, I one challenge was I don't know, like that was the only thing because I wasn't like leading every group. I don't know actually if they got to where I was hoping they would get, or like it's like some groups maybe were like a little more silent than others. And so I don't know how much thinking was happening necessarily in all of the groups.
Mm, that's interesting. So I was actually thinking about that, and so one of the things I was wondering, um, so the objective I know was related to proportional reasoning. And I think that you were, can you just restate for me like what specifically the objective was?
Yeah. So the objective was for them to be able to compare uh, different. I can't remember the exact wording at this moment, but it was to compare different proportions and determine, or to compare two different things and determine whether they were proportional or not and why.
Yep. Um,
And so they had different, like they were looking at two different cases, and they had to determine if they were proportional, and different. Ultimately they had to like share their work because they had to determine, like, how did they do it, how did they come up with their answer, was their work right, and there are different ways to determine whether something's proportional or not.
yeah. So what I really want to dig in today is that part of the making the students thinking visible, which I think gets back at kind of like the problem that you were identifying. What do you know now about what students know in terms of proportional relationships? Like leaving that lesson, what evidence do you have that students mastered the objective?
Well, I was looking at their exit tickets actually, and it did seem there were about, let's see, so it was 22 out of 26 of them at least got question one right, which was just like a very basic, like, are these two numbers proportional or not? And then question two, um, 18 of them got it right, which was more, where they were given a word problem and they had to basically create some sort of proportional reasoning within that. So what that tells me is that most of the students at least understand what a proportion is, or at least know how to determine whether something's proportional, even if they don't know what it is. But it does tell me that there are some students who either don't actually understand what proportional means, like when they come to the word problem and what they're trying to solve for, or they can't identify what they're trying to solve or kind of like how to go about doing it. And
And
of
so,
course, there are always some mathematical errors, but I don't actually want to focus on those as much because those are like kind of lower level
right,
math
right,
problems.
yeah, yeah, attend precision. But I wonder actually if we could dig in a little further there. How can we figure out what the misconceptions that students are having are? Right? 'Cause so we have the multiple choice data right now, which gives you a good sense of like the yes or no,
Yeah.
right? But we really want to uncover the student thinking. So how can we uncover what the misconception is for those four students? Or no, I'm sorry, for the six students um, who got question two wrong.
Um, I I'm wondering if there's a way to like put them into, well, I guess I'd have to look at their work if they have it, but I'm wondering if this is how, if we can utilize the breakout groups to do that, because I don't know if it would make sense to put them all in one group together and like me lead that group so I can start to hear that, or if it makes sense to break them into two groups so that they're with other people who did understand it, like as a review of the exit ticket in breakout groups. I don't know. What do you think?
Totally agree on the use of the breakout group, because that absolutely gives you the ability to have more targeted conferences, and also just more generally using your data to inform what your grouping needs to be, and having that kind of like rapid data cycle is exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Now, I think the next step, it's like, okay, so we have the breakout group, but how are we actually going to collect the data in real time? I think like both within that group, but then in the future, we want to be able to act on the data immediately.
Right.
In other words, like we want to surface what that misconception is so that you don't have to have a separate breakout group, or that when you have the, because now we're kind of going into that breakout group a little bit like, I'm not sure what the misconception is. And so we can plan like 2 possible or 3 entry points that might
Right.
address the misconception. But I think what I want to focus on a little more is how do I uncover the student thinking um, in the first place.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And it's actually making me think that maybe some of the kids who got the exit ticket right, it was because they heard from peers in their initial breakout group or something. I don't know. So I wonder, I don't know. I guess that's what I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that what we should do here is to implement one of our ed tech tools to have students make their thinking visible. And
Okay.
so what I think what you're most comfortable right now is Cami.
Yeah.
And so what we need to do is just have students use Cami. We need to build time directly into the lesson where they're making their thinking visible for that exit ticket, um,
Okay.
or during the small group time. Like it really doesn't, the time is not the important thing here. It's like the making the student thinking visible so that you can then review it. Um, and
And am I
so,
reviewing it like real time or after the fact, or like how can, I guess that's like my, I don't know how to like navigate all those pieces with the ed tech, like trying to review the Cami and trying to lead the class and like being in the breakout group. That like really overwhelms me.
yep. So let's just make it like bite-sized. One thing that you can definitely do. And so let's say that you use the Cami tool for the exit ticket, and then we are reviewing the data after the fact. And so
Okay.
that will help you to build facility with the tool and with the data
Okay.
analysis. And then we can think about, okay, how do we do that more concretely within real time?
Okay. That makes sense. So for my next lesson, I will have an exit ticket that has an ed tech tool. I'll just like have Cami make sure that they're showing their student work, whether it's a multiple choice or not. Actually, probably just won't make it a multiple choice so that they're more that they have to show their student work, or I'll just have a section that says show their student work. And then I can review that data um, to actually see their thinking and determine what the misconception are. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's totally right. I'm wondering, just so that we can get meta about this, because what I want to make sure is that we're building skills and developing your capacity over time that you can use
Mm-hmm.
transferably.
Yeah.
So how is what you're doing here, the thinking that we just engaged in, helping you to solve a problem that we articulated earlier in the meeting?
Um, well, I think so like I didn't actually know what the student misconceptions were because I didn't get to see the student, or I didn't get to see all students thinking. Like I got to see some in the breakout groups, but I'm basically creating a structure that is allowing me to see all student thinking, that I can do no matter what the problem is, or even if it's not math, like no matter what they're doing, create a structure so I can see all student thinking that I can very quickly review and then implement, make next steps based on that in a very quick cycle.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And so
Okay.
just to step out a little bit more generally for like our ongoing coaching relationship, I want to make sure that we are like clearly defining a problem of practice or an area that you want to get good at, right? And being like, okay, so what is it that we need to know or to develop our understanding of? And then to try out some specific strategy that's like a bite-sized next step that you can take that's going to move forward the student learning, and all linked back to that goal of like 3C, engaging students in learning, right? This is going to help you because one, students will be doing the thinking, two, you'll be able to see that thinking, and then three, when you're teaching into the small group next time, or whole class, or what in whatever version, you'll actually be closer to that zone of proximal development at the nexus of challenge and ability, because you know what the gap is.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think like my concern is that I like start thinking about the next steps and I don't always know what to do next. And so maybe we can talk about that at another time. But I do think at least it sounds like the first step is like being able to see the student thinking, because I can't decide what to do without it. But then it's kind of like, well, where do I go from here is kind of like my next thing I'm thinking about.
Yeah, awesome. And so we'll break there. Thank
Thank
you.
you.